for attending our BIA Q3 2025 Market Outlook Roadshow. First of all, let me remind you, during the presentation, you may post your question in the chat. So at the end of the presentation or during the presentation itself, our presenter will answer your question or our team will answer at the chat. Okay, so our presenter today is Hafiz and Daniel from Business Insights and Analytics team. So without further ado, I'll invite Daniel or Hafiz to start the presentation.
All right, thank you, Najmi. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our third quarter of 2025 Market Outlook Roadshow. Thank you for taking your time to spend your morning with us, presenting some of the interesting facts in the upcoming slides that you may see later on. So let's go on the first slide. So a little bit of introduction. This is a quarterly publication that we share with our stakeholders on giving a clear view on MH performance and the wider market outlook. So each edition, we specifically curated by our team, and we select the topics which can be most relevant and strategically important at that point in time. So for the data sources, we from all external figures come from publicly available platforms and reputable research publications, while MH specific data is extracted from the Mabel database. Our analysis mainly focuses on MH related metrics, and whenever we include external insight, those are clearly cited from third-party research. So overall, this report combines both internal and external views to give a comprehensive snapshot of MH performance. So the next slide, we want to look at the agenda of today. So we begin with MH key performance, and then we look into the MH top 10 routes, and followed by the sustainability landscape and regulatory trends, and we end it with a little bit short on Q&A session. So I want to look at the first one, which is the MH key performance. So for MH key performance, we delivered a strong operational performance in third quarter 2025, with our on-time performance stands at 86.8%, which is improvements from 7.5% from second quarter 2025. That indicates a stronger schedule adherence and operational discipline. For our CSI, we are at 85%, which is 2% plus from second quarter 2025, which shows consistent satisfaction level. Performance appears stable and well received by customers. For NPS, we are up by 7 points from second quarter 2025, a notable jump signaling increased customer advocacy and overall experience enhancements. So I want to look at the fleet size and age overview. So our fleet again consists of a mix of A330s, 50s, and B737 variants. So for the newest one, we have our A330-941 at 0.4 years and our B737-8 MAX 8 at 0.9 years. Our oldest, which is the A330-200 at 17.1 years and B737-8 at 14 years. So we're still going on for the continued fleet modernization with our newest A330neo and 73 MAX units. So the implication of this, which with younger fleet, will lead to better fuel efficiency and lower maintenance costs, and also improve passengers' experience, which can be a positive indicator for future performance. So I want to look at the passenger traffic and capacity metrics. So for our available seats per kilometers, slight month-on-month growth pattern with capacity ramps up in August and slight normalization in September. For our RPK, consistent growth across the quarter. Demand is rising steadily, outpacing ASK growth, positive for yields. For load factor, we have a strong upward trend where load factor consistently improving, indicating efficient capacity management and strong demand recovery. For passengers numbers, steady month-on-month passenger growth, likely fueled by peak season travel and improved network performance. Sorry.
โทรจากมาเลยนะคะใครทำไฟล์มาเลย789 Delta ค่ะ
Sorry. Can you repeat your question? Is that a question? Okay. All right, no, we go on. So for overall summary, Malaysia Airlines shows strong momentum across operational, customers experience, and traffic metrics. For operations, we are more reliable and on time. Our customer experience showed a very positive CSI and an NPS, which indicates customers are happier. For traffic and demand, all key demand metrics, RPK, load factor, and passenger volumes are trending up. And our fleet modernization ongoing with newer aircraft entering the fleet. And there's more newer aircraft coming at the end of this year as well for DOs. So let's go to the next slide. All right, for the macroeconomic geopolitical outlook, so when we look at our main theme here is lower jet fuel prices with a stronger ringgit, and China's inflationary pressures are improving regional competitiveness. So for first, we want to look at the jet fuel price decline, which is in third quarter 2025. Jet fuel prices stay within a lower and more stable range, around $67 to $71 per barrel, which this stabilization brings significant cost relief, especially since fuel typically accounts for 25 to 40% of airline operating expenses. So globally, IATA expects 2025 jet fuel prices to average about $86 per barrel, which is a 30% drop from last year. This translates into an estimated about $52 billion in saving for airlines worldwide. So the key takeaway here, the cost relief is essential, supporting better profitability and helping airlines maintain more stable fares. So for currency, you can see that stronger ringgit, which can equals to lower the USD dominated cost, which the ringgit strengthened slightly against the US dollar in third quarter, improving by about 0.5%. While the movement looks small, the impact is meaningful because a large portion of airline expenses, such as aircraft parts, leases, and maintenance, are all USD denominated. For Malaysian carriers, a stronger ringgit means lower import costs, reduced foreign currency burden, and potentially better margins. So the key takeaway here is a firmer ringgit gives Malaysian airlines a strategic cost in a price-sensitive market. And last but not least, we want to look at the inflation and pricing pressures across the region. So in terms of the macro environment, inflation dynamics differ by market, which China is experiencing a mild deflation, which lowers manufacturing and supply chain costs, but also introduces pricing pressures on regional airlines, where Singapore maintains low inflation, benefiting airlines through cheaper service costs, while Malaysia sits in a moderate but manageable range at around 1.2% overall. 1.2%. Overall, this inflation level support predictable cost planning for airlines across the region. And then we want to look at the next slide. So we're looking at the Malaysia record tourism surge with projected about 332.2 billion contribution that can indicate a strong aviation demand through 2026. Okay, so when we look at how tourism boom fuels aviation growth, where tourism can be seen to continue to be one of Malaysia's strongest economic drivers this year. As of August 2025, Malaysia recorded about 28.24 million tourist arrivals, which is a 14.5% year-on-year increase. This performance is stronger than many of our regional peers and reflects successful tourism campaigns and improved air connectivity. Another key highlight is that Malaysia overtook Thailand as Southeast Asia's most visited country in early 2025 with 10.1 million international travelers, which shows Malaysia rising global attractiveness and growing market strength. In terms of economic impact, tourism is projected to contribute about 332.2 billion to the economy this year, which is up from 289 billion in 2024, which share of GDP also rises from 10.1 to 11.3%, which shows that tourism is now one of Malaysia's strongest growth pillars, directly supporting aviation demand and overall economic stability. So that's also looking at the tourism, which eventually goes to the services sector and also increases the aviation demand. And we want to look at the sectoral outlook and long-term implications. So looking ahead, we can see three major themes for aviation. First, cost management becomes more effective. So with tourism-driven demand stability and lower fuel prices, airlines are able to manage cost structures more strategically. New route launched this year are likely to remain sustainable into 2026. Second, sustained demand expectations. Carrier can continue growing capacity with healthy profitability. This environment also makes it easier to fund sustainability initiatives like SAF, adoption and fleet renewal. Last but not least, which is the infrastructure development support. Malaysia's long-term airport development strategy targeting capacity for 150 million passengers by 2030, which can reinforce the confidence in aviation growth. Regional infrastructure projects further strengthen connectivity. So for overall insight, this policy support, infrastructure expansion, and stable demand all reinforce long-term confidence in the aviation sector. So going to the next slide. So MH delivers the most stable domestic operations, while AirAsia and Batik Air face persistent volatility and regulatory non-compliance. So as you can see, despite record recording the highest share of consumers. For the period of January to August 2025, Malaysia Airlines recorded an OTP of 83.98%, which is the highest among all domestic carriers. While this is just slightly below the regulatory target of 85%, it still places Malaysia Airlines clearly ahead of the market, where Batik Air is in the mid-tier of 76.84%, significant volatility from month to month, and AirAsia only sits at 71.89% with persistent non-compliance, again, regulatory expectation. So if you look at stability measured through the standard deviation of OTP, MH again stands out as the most consistent performer with a deviation of 5.28% compared to 6.39% for AirAsia and 8.43% for Batik Air. The key insight here, Malaysia Airlines actually delivers the most predictable punctuality and operational stability, which is especially important for premium and business traveler who prioritize reliability. So we're going to do the next slides. So despite maintaining one of the lowest cancellation rates for domestic flight, MH records a relatively high share of customers complaining. So we can see that there's a clear gap between MH and its competitors. From January to August, Malaysia Airlines maintained the lowest and most stable cancellation rate, averaging about 4.67%. In contrast, both AirAsia and Batik Air experienced major spikes, which AirAsia exceeding 20% cancellation in March, and Batik Air crossing 50% during peak disruption months. So low cancellations combined with low volatility positions Malaysia Airlines as a reliability leader in the domestic market, a critical factor for maintaining both brand trust and operational efficiency. And for the complaint paradox, however, operational leadership does not directly translate into fewer customer complaints. Despite leading in OTP and cancellation, MH still accounts for 35% of all industry complaints, compared with 23% for AirAsia, 70% for Batik Air. So this is what we call the complaint paradox. The passengers of full service carriers like MH typically have higher expectations, are more service conscious, and insight a larger share of business and premium travelers. So as a result, they are more likely to lodge complaints even when the airline is delivering stronger operational performance. So we're going to look at the beyond OTP. For international operations, MH trailed its peers with an on-time performance 82.8% compared with Japan Airlines 95.6%. So while we lead domestically, the picture changes when we compare Malaysia Airlines against international regional full-service carriers operating. When benchmarked against major FOCA and regional carriers, MH actually ranks lower in OTP for performance. Carriers such as Japan Airlines, Garuda Indonesia, to a smaller extent, Singapore Airlines consistently outperform MH by clear margins. So if you look at the regional peer comparison, Japan Airlines record 95.67%, which is 12.87% higher than Malaysia Airlines, while Garuda is at 91.3%, which is 8.5 points above MH. Whereas Singapore Airlines stands at 82.6, very close with only a 0.2 point difference, while Philippine Airlines is similarly aligned with at 82.7%, which currently forms the baseline for our comparison. So the key insight here is, the key takeaway here is that Malaysia Airlines 82.8% on-time performance. While we are actually very strong domestically, we remain below the industry top global performance and under 85% of regulatory target. So this sort of like reflects a very clear room for improvement, especially if we, Malaysia Airlines, aim to compete at the same operational standard as the leading full service carriers in the region and the global. So let's go to the next slide. However, although MH currently trails leading international carriers in OTP, the outlook is positive as we move into 2025 and 2026. The on-time performance catalyst timeline, as you can see here, which highlights several important developments for our airlines, which is Malaysia Airlines. We expect new aircraft inductions, likely including the A330neos and possibly additional A350s. These aircraft offer a far more better reliability, reduced maintenance downtime, and stronger schedule stability. So alongside that, MH is also progressing with broader fleet modernization initiatives and refining network planning to avoid congestion-prone and overly tight rotations. So as more modern aircraft enter the fleet, MH becomes increasingly capable of achieving and sustaining on-time performance above 85%. Going to the next slide. So we want to look at the IATA industry updates. IATA projects that global aviation revenues will climb to nearly $1 trillion in 2025, with passengers load factors are also expected to hit a record 84%, can be driven by lower jet fuel prices, operational efficiency improvements, sustained recovery in passenger demands. But however, despite all of this strong momentum, several key challenges continue to shape in the industry, such as the supply chain disruptions that we've seen coming from these years, which include aircraft delivery delays and longer maintenance turnaround times, both of which limit flexibility and slow down fleet expansion. Other than that, we look at the infrastructure constraints, where major hubs continues to face congestion and limited slot availability, which can restrict our operational growth. So even with these macro level headwinds, the demand fundamentals remain extremely strong, placing the industry on a steep and sustained recovery path. So for cargo market, on the cargo side, growth remains solid and consistent in July 2025, with total global air cargo demand grew about 5.5% year on year. For international demand, it increases about 6%, where capacity is also expanding about 3.9% globally and 4.5% internationally. So if you look at the regional performance for July, Asia Pacific stands out with almost 6.4% positive, followed by Middle East and Europe, Africa, and North America and Latin America. For the insight here is Asia Pacific actually continues to be the world cargo growth engine, supported by strong manufacturing outputs and rising e-commerce shipments. Okay, so we'll go for this. Now we want to look at the global passenger traffic patterns. So growth remains uneven across regions, shaped by market maturity, travel sentiments, and capacity recovery. So if you look at North America, 1.9% year on year, which shows the slowest growth globally. It's a highly mature market with limited incremental demand, so expansion remains at modest. Europe stands at 3.4% year on year, where it continues a healthy recovery, supported by more than 20% growth in Italy and Spain, driven by strong leisure travel and another strong summer peak season. Latin America, about 9% year on year, one of the fastest growing region, which domestic travel alone grew about 15%, fueled by Brazil's strong consumer spending and rising travel confidence. And Asia Pacific, 9.8% year on year, which leads the global growth, mostly driven by a rapid capacity restoration, high load factors in key markets such as Japan and Australia, and with continued regional outperformance as travel demand. Last but not least, we look at the Middle East, which is about 5.7% increase year on year. Mostly on the growth in the Middle East is supported by the strong premium travel demand, continued long-haul expansion by major carriers, and hub consolidation across the UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. So Asia Pacific and Latin America can be seen here are the world's primary traffic growth engines, while North America remains flat due to market maturity. And with that, I'll finish my part of presentation and I will hand it over to Daniel to take over. Oh, wait, sorry. This is still my part. My bad. Yeah, okay. So for the Malaysia domestic market review, we can see that Malaysia domestic aviation's market actually continues to show a very clear structure. AirAsia actually dominates the domestic segment, while Malaysia Airlines maintains a smaller but quite strategic presence. We prioritize more on the premium international connectivity, consistent like how a full service carrier should operate globally. But when we look at the domestic capacity share, AirAsia consistently controls more than half of Malaysia's total domestic seats, which you can see between January and June 2025, AirAsia maintained a stable monthly deployment of 2.1 to 2.3 million seats, far ahead of other carriers, or where Malaysia Airlines only 0.7 to 0.8 million seats, while Batik Air only about 0.6 to 0.7 million seats. So AirAsia is actually the clear domestic market leader, leveraging their low-cost model and high-frequency network to dominate the segment. While MH strategy is different, we are much more on the smaller domestic footprint, but we're really stronger on the focus for the premium long-haul and regional connectivity. So if we look at the top 5 domestic routes by capacity, we see a very strong concentration, mostly out of KUL, but the top 5 domestics are KUL BKI, KUL Kuching, Penang, Langkawi, and Johor Bahru, where Malaysia domestic aviation system is actually quite heavily dependent on Kuala Lumpur, can reinforce the KLIA pivotal role as the country's main domestic and international hub. For the next one, we're going to look at the our domestic trend on how its strong growth driven by tourism. So Malaysia domestic market can be seen here continues to grow strongly on the back of tourism recovery. For Malaysia Airlines, we recorded about 20% year-on-year domestic capacity growth, reflecting the momentum we're seeing across the key tourism destination. But importantly, MH is not trying to compete for domestic market share. Its domestic expansion is controlled, connectivity oriented, and is designed to support the broader international strategy rather than match AirAsia's scale. So we grow domestically only where it strengthens connectivity, not for aggressive market capture. So for regional comparison, we'll want to look at the different national carrier strategies. So to put this into context, Malaysia's approach mirrors what we see across the region, where full service carriers prioritize profitability and international yield rather than domestic volume. So if you want to look at the Thai Airways, domestic tourism still recovering at about 2.7 year-on-year. Government stimulus plan to boost demand of Thai Airways strategy focuses on the post-Thai Smile consolidation, reducing reliance on domestic volume and strengthening international partnership. So for Indonesia, Garuda Indonesia, we can see that there is a strong demand domestic growth driven by a rising middle class and geographic necessity, which are heavy on LCC competition. So the strategy centers on domestic connectivity, profitability after restructuring. Last but not least, the Japan Airlines. They are quite mature flight domestic rate, strong rail alternatives to limit domestic air growth, which their strategic priorities include streamlining the domestic routes, improving fleet efficiency, reallocating capacity to higher international markets. So for strategic positioning, Malaysia Airlines aligns with the global FSC models that brings us to positioning like Thai Airways, Garuda Airlines, and Japan Airlines. We are focusing on the optimizing profitability, not domestic market shares. We wanted to maintain essential domestic connectivity through a hub and spoke model. We want to channel our resources into international markets where yields are higher. So with such strategy, we allow Malaysia Airlines to deploy wide bodies into profitable long-haul markets, which can also strengthen the KLIA as a regional transit hub and avoid unprofitable over-expansion in a highly price-sensitive domestic markets. So to summarize, AirAsia continues to dominate Malaysia domestic market due to LCC cost structure. Malaysia Airlines maintains a smaller but strategically essential domestic footprint for connectivity, and domestic capacity is rising ahead of Visit Malaysia 2026. And domestic demand is growing across Asia, though major markets like Japan remain flat. Overall, Malaysia Airlines domestic strategy is fully aligned with global full service carrier best practice. With that, now I hand over the presentation to Daniel. Take it away.
Hello. Okay. So thank you, Hafiz, for that introduction and the first part of our market outlook. So continuing with this market outlook report, so similar to our previous market outlooks, we are focusing on 4 main markets. So basically China, India, Indonesia, and Australia. So looking at the first two, which is the China market and India market, so we can see that the top nationality for both the market is mainly consisted of their own nationality. So like 69% of China market is Chinese citizen, and 91% of India market is Indian citizen. So basically you can see that from this transit passenger percentage, so majority of India passenger is basically utilizing MPH as a network connectivity, similar to China, but it's slightly lower, so about 58%. So Malaysian citizens are also in the top 3 for China market and India market. So the most popular segments, as you can see, is Beijing and Shanghai for China market, and Delhi and Mumbai for our India market. So looking at the travel trend, Chinese travelers shifting towards emotionally resonant, lifestyle-driven and culturally grounded travels, similar to India. Also, their luxury holidays are increasingly more popular, basically because of their status symbol. As you might know, that most Indian travelers are actually prefer to use our MH airline mainly for connectivity. Okay, so moving on. So, okay, going through the next two market, which is our Australian market and our Indonesian market. Similar to China and India, mainly consisted of their own national citizen. 62% for Australian in the Australian market and 74% for Indonesian in Indonesian market. But Indonesia are less utilizing MH for connectivity, while Australia are 89%. As you can see, 15% of Indian nationality are also traveling through to Australia, and 98% of them are transit passengers. So basically, they are from India directly to Australia with MH through Cool, right? And the most popular segments are Melbourne and Sydney for Australia, and also Jakarta and Surabaya for our Indonesian market. Okay. All right, so moving on to our MH Travelers segment shift. So as you can see here, we are focusing more on these three generation. This is our Q3 2035 data from Webull. So we are comparing last year's trend and this year's trend for these three, basically our highlighted age groups. So there's millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers. So you can see that our top destinations for all these, I would say, age groups are Singapore mostly, and Jakarta and Bangkok for our millennials and Gen X. And baby boomers are mostly Singapore and some long distance travel to London and Sydney. Right. So for millennials, you can see that Singapore and Bangkok are decreasing the market share for our travelers, similar to Gen X. But you can see the increase in our Jakarta destination. This is mainly due to some popularities towards the possible shift for our regional hub, such as Jakarta. Right?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, similar to the takeaways that I mentioned before, Singapore is on top, but there's slightly dips in the market share. So if we look at the future bookings, so this is for fourth quarter travel and beyond. So as you can see here, millennials are still our main market share for our advanced booking for fourth quarter and beyond. Followed by our Gen X and Gen Alpha. So Gen Alpha and Gen X are about 42% of our future bookings. So it's worth to highlight that this is a big sum of our age group for our future bookings. So it might be something that we can look at to actually cater to all these Gen Alpha and Gen X. Right. So Gen Alpha travel is very likely growing due to the millennials traveling with kids. So millennials kids are now Gen Alpha and some Gen Zs. So that's why this actually, we would say it's born together, right? So for the number of days, group travelers still plan their trip well in advance compared to solo travelers and pair traveler. So you can see that group travelers are actually basically planning more than 2 months in advance. Okay. All right. Next, we look at our top 10 international routes by revenue. So this is our revenue from January to September. So overall, this is, I would say, mostly our long haul are actually generating the most revenues. With Jakarta, Bangkok in our regional destinations. All right. So you can see the load factors. Only Tokyo, Korea, and Bangkok are falling below 80%. So the most are well above 80%, with London leading the revenue numbers with a load factor of 84%. So you can see also our load factor forward booking for more than 90 days. You can see that North Asia actually quite populous with Narita at 82%, Incheon 73%, and also Auckland 85%. Okay. So, right, moving on, still in our top 10 international revenues, international routes by revenue. So you can see that this is the breakdown for the nationality. You can see that most of our top 10 destinations are actually mainly consisted of their own nationalities, similar to what I mentioned before, this Indonesia and the Australia, China, and India market, except for 3. So for Auckland, our New Zealand market mainly is from India, and then Doha is mainly from Malaysia, and also Bangkok, where Malaysian travelers are dominating these 3 segments. Okay. Right. Moving on, we have a look at our ancillary outlook for the airline industry. While the base fare remains the core revenue driver, ancillary income streams have become increasingly critical for profitability, stability, and shaping the modern airline business world. Right. So we look at financial year 2024. Our global ancillary revenue reached 150 billion, increased about 32 billion from 2023. Leading source continue to be co-branded credit cards, contributing 32 billion alone. However, we also see a decline in average global fare. So business class fare and economy class down 4% and 3% respectively, right, reflecting weaker than expected demand. So airline lowering fares to stimulate booking. Right, so despite this, ancillary spending remains a powerful revenue generator. And airlines are leveraging data-driven personalization to optimize fares and ancillary offers, ensuring they capture more value beyond ticket sales. Right. Looking at Asia Pacific full service airline, we have Singapore Airlines to actually compare and look at what they are doing. So
we have still.
their cruise shop has seen a tremendous growth, premium and exclusive offering. For example, number of brands of cruise shop grew by 13%, and then cruise shopper membership also grew by 34%, and repurchase rate stand at 31%. So it's showing a strong customer engagement. Similarly to Qantas, they offer they reported their other revenue and income of 2.1 billion in FY financial year 25. So it's up from 1.8 billion in FY 24. Okay, this growth was driven by loyalty programs, holiday package, insurance policy sales, room service, and ancillary revenues like Club Jetstar membership.
After
okay, so let's look at the 3 major drivers shaping this ancillary trend. So firstly is cost advantage. Average trip cost is about 40% below the global average. This cost competitiveness is fueling strong demand for corporate meetings and group travels. So market diversity and behavior shift. Spending patterns vary significantly. Premium travelers in markets like Japan and Singapore versus the cost-conscious travelers in India and Indonesia. So basically, it's more on the spending power of these premium travelers and cost-conscious travelers. The behavior shift rise in leisure travel, where travel extend work trip for leisure purposes. And to capture this opportunity, airline can promote high margin ancillaries tailored to premium segments, such as upgrades, Wi-Fi, and lounge access. Localized pricing benefit to match regional spending capacity and traveler expectations. They can also bundle extended stay and leisure experience with hotels, dining, and attractions through partnerships. Alright, finally, with limited room for fare cards, focus on experience-driven ancillaries. This might be the next frontier for revenue and loyalty. So next, we look at the loyalty products trend. So APAC Airline driving member engagement through hotel partnership, non-flights, earning expansions, credit card transfer bonus, community programs, and lifestyle benefit promotional connections. So these slides highlight all the various strategies airline use to enhance member value and strengthen their position with the dynamic loyalty ecosystem. So for example, Singapore Airlines partner with Wyndham Rewards to offer Paris KrisFlyer hotel transfer benefits. Member can earn 1,200 KrisFlyers with 6,000 Wyndham points. So this partnership gives access to 120 million Wyndham members. So it expands KrisFlyers reach globally and align with the Star Alliance footprint. So for non-flight earnings expansion, Singapore Airlines also innovating with non-flight earnings opportunities. Members can earn up to 20% affiliate status via non-flight spend through channels like Kris Plus, Kris Shop, and Pelago. They have introduced dual earnings with PPS value and Kris Flyer months, and these initiatives encourage participations from non-traveler and households. So the credit cards and point transfer promotions on the credit card side, Cathay Pacifics, for example, offer 10% transfer bonus across retails, hotel, car rentals, etc. So they maintain the predictable 10 to 15 annual bonus pattern, which is expected to continue even after 2027. And lastly is the social impact and community programs. Japan Airlines launched the Dream Miles Pass initiative where Japan Airlines, a member of Japan Airlines Mileage Bank, support individual pursuing their dreams to travel assistance, creating a strong emotional connection with the brand. So the next one, we're going to look at the ground handling. So this market is expected to grow significantly. If you can see from the graph, the first one, so it actually doubles in 2033. So this is the expected growth for our ground handling outlook, right? So this upward trend reflects the critical role ground handling plays in supporting expanding air travel. So, however, there are challenges: labor shortage, high turnovers, physical demanding roles. These are the top restraints along with service bottlenecks. So on the other hand, growth is fueled by rising air traffic, cargo expansions, airport capacity increase, and the need for operational efficiencies. Looking ahead to 2035, the largest share of ground handling service will come from cabin services, and they're followed by catering and ramp service. Passenger service and field operations are also there, but they're in a small portions. All right, so what does it mean? Cabin service involves cleaning, waste removal, stocking onboard supplies, turnaround time of about 15 to 30 minutes per flight, and catering service are equally critical, serving over 6 billion meals annually. All right, so as air traffic and cargo volume rise, ground handling will remain a vital backbone of airline operations. But addressing workforce challenge and improving efficiency will be key to sustaining this growth. Next is through digital and innovations, we're going to see what is currently the impact of AI on sustainability, right? Let's look at data center demand. Global electricity demand for data center is forecasted to rise about 165% by 2030. So it's largely driven by AI growth. AI, next is the high water consumption. AI data centers could consume around 1 trillion liters of water annually by 2028, based on 2024 levels. Right? Global water usage may hit 4 to 6.6 billion cubic meters by 2027. It's roughly about the same as 4 to 6 times annual water usage for a smaller country like Denmark. So training large models is extremely resource intensive. So for example, GPT-3 uses 1,287 milliwatt and power and emitted 552 tons of CO2, while GPT-4 training produced roughly 12 times more emissions. So this is some of the challenges and the impact of AI on the sustainability. So while AI accelerates progress, its environmental footprint is very significant. Addressing these challenges with sustainable practice will be crucial for the future. And we'll look at what our market are saying. So these market sentiments towards the adoption of AI. As a business leader's perspective, 68% now see AI as an opportunity. Actually, it drops from 82% last year, and 11% actually views it as a risk. So some of the companies are following the 10-20-70 rules, which means 10% of algorithm, 20% of data and technologies, 70% of people interaction. However, despite broad adoption, 74% of firms struggle to scale AI due to gaps in data, governance, and skills. So moving on to public opinions, on the consumer side, sentiment is more cautious, I would say, across 25 countries. 34% of adults are more concerned than excited about AI. 42% feel mixed, and only 16% are mostly excited. So in particular, they are worried about AI spreading misinformation and harming their jobs. Interestingly, people are more comfortable with AI in support roles like grammar editing, where 55% feel okay, but they are uneasy with the fully AI-generated content. While businesses are pushing towards this AI adoption, scaling remains a challenge, and public trust will be critical for long-term success. Then looking at the sustainability landscape and regulatory trend. Okay, so this is based on impact region. The region is advancing sustainable aviation fuel (SAF) adoption through measures like levies, blending mandates, substitution goals, and carbon taxes. These policies are supported by regulatory alignment and financial incentive to meet net zero targets. So you can see the Singapore, China, and Japan, and also Thailand is what they are currently doing. So Singapore implemented a fixed levy on departed flights for 2026 to fund SAF acquisition, while China mandate for 50,000 tons of sustainable aviation fuel by 2025. And Japan aiming for 10% aviation fuel substitution by 2030. And Thailand, lastly, is Bangkok Airways adopted 1% SAF blend on commercial flights from July 2025. So some of the regulatories supporting these efforts are initiatives like Porsche webinar, Singapore's ANR 129, Advanced Air Mobility Standards, and 2050 net zero targets. So these measures demonstrate growing regional consensus on the importance of regulatory support and financial mechanism. So for policy alignment, regional framework are target set, and then there's mandates, national SAF blending requirement introduced, and then incentive, the subsidies, tax and credit scale productions. Lastly is the market growth. You can see widespread of SAF uptake across Asia Pacific. So overall, Asia Pacific is positioning itself as a leader in sustainable aviation through strong policy action and market incentive, paving the way for net zero aviations. All right, I think that's about it for this market outlook. So we recap and look at all the agendas that we have covered. So the key performance of MH, and then our macro and geopolitical outlook, our competitors, our IATA updates, as well as all these travelers, segmentship and top 10 routes, etc. All right. So thank you everyone for this opportunity to explain to you all, to actually showcase our market outlook. And now I will actually give it back to my colleague Najmi for the next session. Thank you.
All right, thank you Hafiz and Daniel for such insightful presentation. Now we are open to the floor on the Q&A. If you have any question regarding the presentation just now, please just shoot it away, and our presenter will try their best to answer your question. And also, if you don't want to speak, you can just put it in the chat. So now we are open for anyone to ask your question. Anyone?
Hi, Najmi, right? This Weefern. I've actually dropped a comment or question in the chat box already. I'd just like to know, right? on the topic of AI, you mentioned that I believe that was actually a general perspective. Correct me if I'm wrong. Then what about the general adoption of AI in terms of consumer airlines? And then what is it mainly used for? Because I would like to understand about the adoption in the airlines itself. Thank you.
So hi, Yufan. So basically, the AI perspective actually quite general. So this is the sentiments towards whole industry. So actually, for this report, we are focusing more on the general sentiment, but we will look to explore this sentiment, this AI sentiments perspective in this aviation industry in the future.
ใช่ไหมเดี๋ยวพี่ตามไป
I think that would be helpful because then it will actually help us to also rethink how we adopt this AI, right?
Yeah.
But thank you.
Yeah, correct. All right, thank you.
Hi, I have a quick question when it comes to India and China market.
All right, sure.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but what I hear from the presentation was that for China market, for India market, they value, they travel in groups and look for value, right? Are we seeing the same trend from China segment as well? Or is there any particular different behaviors or trend when it comes to spending between China and India?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I don't get it.
So when it comes to China versus India market, we're seeing growth on both segments or both regions, right? I just want to know, is there any specific difference when it comes to behavior or spending between China and India?
กี่เด้งจ้ะ
Because from the earlier presentation, if I got it correctly, India is a bit more value driven and they travel in groups. Are we seeing similar trends with China or is it different?
All right. So we actually didn't go through that in this report, but maybe something that we can actually have a look. But yeah, thank you for that comments, but we don't have the answer right now.
No worries. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. So anyone else have any questions?
Hi, Joshua here from Group Partnership. There's one slide that I saw just now. It's related to the top 5 destination with the load factor. And I believe one of the route Doha is, the load factor is 7%. Am I seeing the number correctly?
Yeah, that one is our forward load factors. Yeah, so that 7% is correct. Actually, so that is plus 3 months in advance.
I see, because the overall there's a 10 route here. The number is hovering between 60 to almost hitting 80%, and that's quite a big difference. It's only 7% for Doha. Okay, is there any specific reason for why such the number is only in single digit?
Okay, so this is actually based on our Mabel data, but we can check and get back to you again on this.
Okay, Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there any more questions?
กรมเจ้าท่าออกเป็นหนังสือรับรองให้
Yeah. So if there is no more question, I appreciate everyone if you can give us some feedback
เดี๋ยวมันต้องถามที่
in the feedback form.
ใช่ให้เขาทำมาก่อน
Let me share
แล้วก็ส่ง
my slide. Okay, you may scan this feedback form and give us your feedback so we can improve further on our next quarterly market outlook report. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I will also give it in the chat the link to the feedback form. Thank you everyone.
Booking เขายังอยู่ไหมครับหรือว่า cancel ไปแล้ว Booking เขาอะยังอยู่ไหมหรือว่า cancel ไปแล้ว